Welcome to this deep dive into a film you flagged for us. The absolute classic Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
It's one of those films, isn't it? Feels like it's always been around.
Totally. And so many people see it as, pretty much how it happened, a real historical account.
Yeah, there's this real romance to it, this idea of these charming outlaws, the end of the West,
Mm,
that clicks with people.
exactly. But what we're going to do today, digging into the sources you sent over, is kind of peel back those layers.
Get behind the legend a bit.
Yeah. Our mission, let's say, is to figure out where the movie takes some liberties with history.
And look at some of those behind-the-scenes choices, because there were some interesting ones.
Definitely. We've got historical accounts, backstage stories, the works. Okay, so let's jump right in. That opening line.
Ah, yes. Most of what follows is true.
Such a simple line, but it really sets a tone, doesn't it? It makes you think, okay, this is the real deal.
It's brilliant filmmaking, really, but as your sources point out, the screenwriter, William Goldman, well, he loved a good story.
And sometimes a good story needs a little shaping.
Precisely. Strict historical fact wasn't always, let's say, the top priority.
Right. And a prime example is that whole super posse chase.
Oh, yeah. The film makes it feel like this relentless, almost mythical pursuit across the country.
They're always just escaping, but that posse is right on their heels. It's incredibly tense.
It is. But, historians looking at it tend to think, well, things were probably heating up much faster,
Nini.
meaning the real pursuit was likely so intense that Butch and Sundance probably realized getting to South America was the smart move, maybe much sooner than the film shows.
Ah, okay. So that long, drawn-out chase across the U.S. is more dramatic license.
Yeah, amps up the tension, builds that feeling of the walls closing in. Classic
Ah.
Western stuff, really.
Makes sense for the movie. Okay, so sticking with shaping the story, the casting, it's almost impossible now to picture anyone but Redford as Sundance.
It really is. He's a Sundance Kid. But wow, the names that were thrown around before him.
Go on.
Jack Lemmon, Steve McQueen, Warren Beatty, even Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando. Wow, that's a totally different vibe. Jack Lemmon, too. What happened there? Why didn't they end up in the role?
Well, the most famous story is with Steve McQueen. Classic Hollywood, really. It came down to billing.
Ah, who gets top billing?
Exactly. He and Paul Newman couldn't agree on whose name came first, so McQueen walked.
Amazing. So how did Redford land it? He was known, but maybe not quite on that McQueen-Newman level yet.
Not quite, no. But Paul Newman himself and the director George Roy Hill, they really pushed for him.
They saw something there.
They did. And apparently, Newman's wife, Joanne Woodward, also threw Redford's name in the ring.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it just shows how these things happen,
Yeah.
Personal connections, championing someone. It created this iconic duo.
It really makes you wonder what the film would have felt like with, say, Beatty or Brando.
Completely different dynamic, I imagine.
So even the title wasn't set in stone initially.
Nope. Goldman's original script was actually called The Sundance Kid and Butch Cassidy.
The other way around. Why flip it?
It seems it came down to star power, basically. Paul Newman was just slightly the bigger name at that moment.
So Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid sounded better for the marquee.
Pretty much. Makes business sense, I suppose.
And it wasn't just the title they tweaked, right? The gang's name, too.
That's right. History tells us they were the Wild Bunch.
The Wild Bunch. Okay. But the movie calls them the Hole in the Wall Gang.
Yeah, and the reason for that change is pretty interesting. It was practical.
Oh, so?
Another big Western came out the very same year, 1969. Sam Peckinpah's film.
The Wild Bunch.
Exactly. A very different, much more violent film. So, to avoid confusing audiences.
They switched Butch and Sundance's gang name to Hole in the Wall. Makes sense.
Avoids people buying a ticket for one and expecting the other.
Right. Now, let's talk about something that feels totally inseparable from the film now, but apparently caused a bit of a fuss. The music.
Ah, yes. Specifically, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head.
The bicycle scene. It's iconic. But it wasn't an immediate hit with everyone involved.
Not at all. The sources say there was real resistance. It felt, well, very contemporary pop for a Western.
Yeah, you can kind of see that. It's very light, breezy.
Even Robert Redford apparently questioned it. Felt it didn't fit the Western vibe at all.
So why did it stay? Who insisted?
That was the director, George Roy Hill. He was adamant. He felt it captured the spirit of that moment, that sort of playful freedom.
And he stuck to his guns.
He did. And, I mean, look what happened. Oscar for Best Original Song. Massive hit record.
And now you can't imagine that scene without it.
Not a chance. It just proves sometimes those unexpected, maybe even controversial choices become the things people remember most.
Absolutely. A gamble that paid off. Okay, speaking of memorable moments, those action sequences, they look pretty spectacular. Were they as dangerous as they seemed?
Huh. Well, movie magic was definitely working overtime.
Give us an example.
Okay, remember the scene where the horses jump out of the moving train car?
Yeah. Looks terrifying.
Well, the reality was a bit more controlled. They apparently used ramps inside the car and had another door open on the other side.
Ah, so they weren't really leaping blindly out into space.
Not quite. A real jump like that would have been incredibly risky, maybe impossible with the train moving. Clever setup.
Okay, clever setup. What about the really big one, the cliff jump? Who are those guys?
That's probably the most famous bit of trickery.
They didn't actually jump off that massive cliff.
Nope, not Newman and Redford. Anyway, stuntmen did the jump, but not even from that exact spot.
Really?
Yeah, they built a special platform, sort of like a crane arm, over deeper water somewhere else entirely.
No way.
Yeah, filmed the stuntmen jumping from the platform, then edited it together with shots of the actors on the real cliff edge.
Wow. That's movie magic right there. Creates this absolutely breathtaking illusion.
Exactly. Safe, controlled, but looks incredibly perilous on screen.
So the film creates these illusions. What about the characters themselves? Butch Cassidy in the movie is charming. The planner, maybe not the best shot. Is that accurate?
That's another area where there's a bit of nuance.
Hmm.
The charm part, that seems pretty spot on.
Okay.
The historical accounts suggest the real Butch Cassidy was known for being charismatic, intelligent, a good planner.
No.
Maybe less overtly violent than some other outlaws of the time.
Friendly, even.
Some reports suggest that, yeah, outside of the robbing, obviously.
Yeah.
But the movie maybe downplays his competence a little, or emphasizes Sundance's skills more.
Right. Sundance is the deadly shot in the film.
Exactly. So the film crafts specific roles for them, which might simplify the reality a touch. Gives Butch that sort of lovable rogue leader vibe.
Makes him very sympathetic. Now, this whole package, the story, the stars, it cost a lot, didn't it? Especially the screenplay.
Oh, massively. The number that gets cited is $400,000 that 20th Century Fox paid William Goldman for the script.
400,000 back then.
Yeah, it's reportedly unprecedented. A huge amount just for a screenplay. Considered a massive gamble by the studio.
Betting the farm on Goldman's story.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it worked out okay for them, didn't it?
Understatement. The film was a gigantic hit, so the gamble paid off big time.
Absolutely. Proves that sometimes investing in pure storytelling talent is the way to go.
Now, we see this amazing chemistry on screen between Newman, Redford, Catherine Ross. But was it all smooth sailing behind the scenes?
Well, film sets are intense places, long hours, high pressure.
So not always laughs and sunshine?
Apparently not always, no. Sources mention there might have been some friction at times between Catherine Ross, who played Etta Place, and the director George Roy Hill.
Creative differences or...
The details are a bit hazy, but just mentions of some tension there. And then there's a story about Paul Newman.
Another Newman story. Let's hear it.
It involves the director's desk and a saw.
Wait, what? Newman sawed the director's desk?
In half. Apparently it was some kind of prank. Hill owed Newman some money or something along those lines. And this was Newman's way of making a point.
That's incredible. Gives you a little insight into the personalities involved.
Definitely. Even with the great on-screen chemistry, there were clearly some strong characters working together.
Classic Hollywood antics. Okay, finally, let's talk about that ending. The freeze frame in Bolivia.
Yeah.
So iconic.
Incredibly powerful ending. Leaves you right there with them, guns blazing.
But history is maybe a bit less certain about how it all ended.
That's the big question mark, isn't it? The movie gives us this dramatic, almost heroic last stand.
Yeah, the ultimate outlaw blaze of glory.
But historically, it's murky. There's no definitive proof they died exactly like that, or even in that specific shootout.
So what are the other theories?
Well, there have been persistent stories and some, circumstantial evidence suggesting they might have survived, maybe escaped, lived under different names, possibly even made it back to the U.S. years later.
Wow. So the real ending might be completely unknown, or at least debatable.
Pretty much. The movie went for the dramatic, definitive, romanticized ending, which, works brilliantly for the film.
It seals their legend.
Okay.
Absolutely. A legend cemented by that freeze frame. Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive, it seems like the big takeaway is that Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid is this amazing mix, right?
Totally. It's part history, part Hollywood invention. You've got these real figures, but Their story is shaped, compressed, dramatized.
We saw how casting could have gone totally differently, how even the music was a debated choice that became iconic.
Right. And how the action scenes relied on clever filmmaking tricks, not just real-life danger. And the ending, well, the movie chose its own powerful version.
It highlights how much creative license goes into making even a supposedly true story work on screen.
And it also shows how the real people, like Butch, might have been a bit more complex than their screen versions.
So it's a beloved classic, absolutely, but maybe not the history lesson some people think it is.
Exactly. It's important to appreciate it as this fantastic piece of storytelling, but also understand where it departs from the messy reality of history.
Which leads us to a final thought for you listening. Thinking about how much this film means to people, how enduring it is.
Does the strict historical accuracy ultimately matter as much as the incredible, captivating story the film tells?
Is the power of that cinematic legend in the end more important than getting every single fact right? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.